You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Now, Bharat, we finally reached the last topic of our long discussion. I've enjoyed it immensely. We're going into overtime, as you do on a test match. Overrates, extra half hour.
Yeah.
I think David Boone, the match referee, will probably fine us or something or suspend.
No. I don't know about David Boone. My wife's on her way back, and I've done none of those tasks that she'd given me, so she's going to find me for sure. But I'll blame you for it.
Oh, well, when you talk about cricket, Bharat, I suppose that's what happens. But to end our discussion today, Bharat, I asked our listeners to send you some questions to us, to ask you and for you to answer them. So thank you to everyone who sent in their questions on email, Instagram, social media these days. All right, so we'll start with the questions, Bharat. We've got one listener who sent in 4 separate questions.
Wow.
So we'll leave that last because that's the longest one. We'll just get through the single ones first. So the first one comes from a friend of the podcast, Aran, who's based in India. I've been on his channel many times talking about cricket and all that, which is great. He's got 2 questions for you, Bharat. The first one is, what is the difference between the Indian and Aussie cricket culture? And the other one maybe sort of ties into this as well. Why are there no star worship for Aussie players like the Indian players? Like they worship them like gods and everything like that. Yeah. So your thoughts on those questions there that Aran wanted you to answer?
I think both are really good questions, and they're linked. I mean, the answers, like you said, Jack, are very linked. Firstly, the second part of it, like why they aren't demigods here, Australian cricketers, or why they aren't kind of worshipped the way cricketers tend to be in India, or even the way Australian cricketers are worshipped in India. I think it's cultural. We spoke about it earlier. Like Australia is an egalitarian country, and everybody's equal. And the one thing I've learned over the years living here and covering Australian cricket, there is that tall poppy syndrome that exists here, where they don't want cricketers in particular to be mega stars. Like they want cricketers, their captains, and everyone to be as relatable as possible. And you see it differently with football stars, the AFL stars or NRL stars, where they can be a bit larger than life. But the greatest example of that in cricket is even Shane Warne. I mean, Shane Warne lived a life that nobody could script. As we know, some of the greatest stars, movie stars and music stars around the world were his best friends, and he lived life at a level that he forget about to the fullest. I mean, he like people said when he passed, unfortunately 3 years ago, he lived like 3 or 4 lifetimes in the 54 years that he got to live. So he was made of a different gravy, but throughout that, he was still very relatable. He was the Australian larrikin. He won Australia over by always being that Australian bloke. And I think he's a great example of why he was worshipped in a different way. He was the kind of guy who any Australian man or woman or any Australian person could just walk up and have a normal chat with. And I think that's the huge difference between India and Australia, and why, despite being a demigod in his own right, Shane Warne was still very relatable and loved for being the Australian larrikin. I mean, even what his dad said in the end, at the funeral, just a beer and a fag in his hand and just loving cricket. So that's who he was. So I think that's a huge cultural change here. So and from my perspective also, there's so much more in common between me and the Australian cricketers than ever was with the Indian cricket. We have coffee at similar places. We go to the same supermarkets or similar supermarkets. Maybe they live in more exorbitant or more lavish houses, and maybe they drive fancier cars than I do. But still, it's all very relatable. And I think Australian society is such that it's an aspirational society where anybody can get anywhere if you put in the hard work, and things kind of fall into place. Whereas in India, it's such a divided society on every front possible, class, caste, all of that put together, that it's not possible. Virat Kohli and I kind of started in cricket at the same time, like him playing and me covering it in 2008. And I've known him for a long time from that period on. He's obviously changed, but I mean, we still kind of occasionally when we meet, we bond over just normal conversation. But beyond the point, there's nothing in common between him and me, right? Like so. So I think that's a huge reason why Indian cricketers never feel approachable. If you're a fan, that is not accessible. But in a weird way, being Indian and being someone from India who's now lived in or now lives in Australia, I get it as well. Deep inside, Indians do not want their cricketers to be very approachable and relatable, because that's when you can build temples for them. That's when they feel like they can be worshipped, because they're at a pedestal which you can't get to, which is very different in an Australian sense. So, I mean, that's just my personal understanding of how things work differently between India and Australia, and why cricketers get treated differently.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think it's definitely different in culture in terms of how we see things and perspectives. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
and just to finish off, in that's also why Indian cricketers love to come to places like Australia and like just do normal things that they're not allowed to do in India, like walk down to a cafe, just sit at a cafe and read a newspaper or whatever it is, like, basic things, go out shopping in Rundle Mall, like those things which they don't get to do there, they do over here.
Yes, definitely. So thanks, Aran, for your question. I hope Bharat answered it to best of his ability. Our next question comes from Crick Loves Me from Instagram. That's a cool name. I can roll with that. He says, thoughts on BBL privatization. Will this move youngsters to choose to play test over money?
No, look, I mean, that Australia is now pretty much the only country left without private investment when it comes to, among the bigger countries anyway, in their league, right, with the Big Bash League. England resisted it for a while, but then after a point, once the 100 came into being, you know what the 100 was. It was designed to be a product that they could sell, which they have now, with so much more money coming into their cricket, which they needed. I mean, when you listen to Michael Vaughan and the rest talk about the counties and how many of them are struggling to stay afloat, this is the kind of money that there was much needed. And you see the opposition that a lot of former England players have to the privatization that's happening there. Will it happen in Australia? Culturally, they have been very resistant to it across sport, but I still don't think it will take away from the value of the baggy green. I mean, I've spoken to Sam Constis on the sidelines, and he values that baggy green more than anything else. So in a country like Australia, I don't think you ever have to worry about young players. I mean, if you think the kind of players who will get swayed in the other direction are those who could reach a point in their careers where they feel like, the test cap is like the baggy green is so far away from me, depending on which state you come from. And also how you want your life to play out. And we've already seen that happen. Like there have been so many white ball specialists in the last 10 years come through the ranks in Australia. But I think that the love and the respect and the reverence around the baggy green will always be there. So you don't have to worry about youngsters or en masse youngsters suddenly deciding to turn their back on test cricket and only focusing on white ball cricket. Well, private investment will obviously make the Big Bash a much bigger league, because that's the one window. I mean, when I've spoken to people, IPL owners and the likes, there's one window on the calendar that they're most desperate to cash in on, which is that mid-December, mid-January, because nothing else happens except the Big Bash mainly. So they want to really cash in on that. So like, forget about opening the door. Even if like a half an inch of the window gets just open, they'll just come flooding in. So is it, and people like Usman Khawaja have spoken about it being a thing or becoming a thing. We'll have to wait and watch, but I can't see it not becoming a thing in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for your question there. Crick Loves Me. Cool name. I like that. I can roll with that. Thanks for your question. I hope Brad answered it well. Our next one is from Dip2 Kumar from Instagram. And I think we've already answered this, Bharat, I think, in international cricket, but here's the question anyway. The ODI World Cup has always been cricket's most prestigious event, but with the rise of franchise cricket and shorter attention spans, do you see the T20 World Cup overtaking it in terms of global reach and financial value?
Well, it already has in many ways. Like, so the ODI World Cup, that's the thing. Like, even the last one that I covered in India, it took a while to warm up because it was such a long tournament as well, each team playing 9 matches. So all 10 teams anyway. So it took a while, but then as we got into the business and business did pick up, and it was fun. It was a fun tournament to be a part of and just to watch. There was such a variety of one-dayers that were played out. So I'm still a big admirer of 50-over cricket. I know people diss it a lot. But in terms of value, the fact that the T20 World Cup gets played twice every year, it's just a sign that it is more financially a better deal. You don't have to play it out over nearly 2 months, so financially it's cheaper in that sense. You can have multiple matches in the same day, so, and the broadcasters are happy as well, so which is why you have been seeing a T20 World Cup every 2 years as compared to the ODI World Cup.
Yeah, well, thanks for your question there, Dip2. It's quite an unusual name. I haven't heard that name before, but thanks for your question. I hope Bharat answered your question well. A next question from Nate Hayes from Instagram. He's a great guy, Nate. He's a part of Emerging Cricket. We had him on the podcast.
Nice.
Covers mainly USA cricket for Emerging Cricket and Associate Cricket. So he's a great guy. Check that out on the podcast, that interview I did with Nate. He's got 2 questions for you here, Bharat. So he says, if he's willing to discuss it, I'll be curious to know about how difficult it is in the field he's chosen. Everyone sees the really cool aspects, that he is around the game he loves, that he is around the people he loves and who love him. But I know it's a very difficult road and there's never really any certainty. I'd like to know how he keeps going in these stressful and uncertain moments. That's the first question. The second question is, does he have a difficult time sometimes with the competitive aspects? It can be quite a dog-eat-dog world often times. I'm sure it feels like snubs can be taken personally. So your thoughts on those 2 questions from Nate, Bharat?
Very personal questions, and I love them. Look, to the first question, you're right. I mean, when you see pictures on social media or just me on TV or whatever, I'll be the last person to complain about the life I have and the life that cricket has given me. The fact that I get to speak to wonderful people like you, Jack, and answer questions from great people like Nate. But no, it's not easy. I mean, it's a job at the end of the day, and I think it starts and ends with that. Like, once you can tell yourself that it's a job that I get paid to do, it's not a passion project. It really is not for me. I'm passionate about what I do, but it's not. I guess it also has to go to do with my background. I didn't grow up wanting to be a journalist, so I didn't have all these dreams and aspirations of doing what I'm doing. I literally just take each day as it comes, every opportunity as it comes, and give it my all. That's how I've lived life. So I think, but it's not easy. You're away from home all the time. You're away from family. In my case, my wife and my dogs and my cousin, and just a routine life, like your regular life. Like, I don't have anything called a regular life. So I have to make the most of whenever I'm home. And I don't want it to come across as a complaint, but it's not. It really is not. But it's just the reality of the path I've chosen. And so you kind of there are lots of lonely nights, or not so lonely for me, because I'm such a people person. I love people so much. I make sure I'm always meeting new people, especially non-cricket people, when I'm on the road, learning more about the city and the town and the country that I'm in. So that curiosity helps. But there are long days and nights by yourself in hotel rooms and in tough Airbnbs. Like, you don't always get paid too well to stay in fancy places. So so you kind of go through all of that, and there is no time to rest. Time zones matter as well. You might be in a time zone where you're catering to 4 different time zones, which means that you're up for 24 hours doing your work. So again, it's something I enjoy doing. It has never felt too stressful for me. I know a lot of journalists get stressed out with what we do. I'm not one of them, but but you're right. I mean, like with every job, there are always the challenges that you have to overcome that people don't see. People don't see the other side, which is why I said earlier, people often come up to me. Like, I've had people in my own family back in India saying, "Oh, I want my son to be you." Like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't want for your son's sake. It doesn't have to be anything like me. He or she can have their own journey that they follow." So I think it's so important to keep into perspective, like, how fortunate and grateful you are to get what you get, but at the same time be cognizant of the fact that there is someone back home, like in my case my wife and the dogs, who are missing you, who have to go on with their life by themselves without you around. And
Yeah,
it's not easy. There are so many difficulties that they have to deal with, stresses that they have to deal with when you're not around. So to be cognizant of that and not just get carried away with the good life you have on the road, and which is often quite a good life, trust me.
that's a great.
And the competitive bit of it, I have honestly, Nate, struggled with all my life. I'm not the most competitive people unless I'm playing sport. Then I'm very competitive. But I'm not the whole I'm better than you kind of attitude. I want to be the best writer in the world, best journalist in the world. Those are not driving factors for me. So in a way, I think it helps because my entire focus always has been walk into every room and want to be the person that brings joy to people. I want everyone to laugh if I'm in the room. Don't take me seriously because I don't take myself seriously. So that kind of attitude, naturally, I haven't developed it. It's just who I am. I think has helped me deal with not being very competitive. Otherwise, this industry can really drill you to the ground. It's an ultra competitive dog eat world, especially now, with social media, everybody trying their best to stand out and be noticed. And which wasn't the case so much when I started this. If I knew this is how it was going to be, I don't know if a young Bharat would have got himself into it, because it's people are just trying to elbow each other out of the way to stand out in whatever they're doing. And credit to them, they're still able to do that. But I have, thankfully, the perspective of this being a job. I do to the best of my ability, have fun while doing it, make sure everyone around me is entertained, most importantly, whether it's because of what I wear or how I am or what I say. But then just parking that over there and just going back and leading a very normal life. I mean, it's not very normal for most people, like watching my wrestling, getting into the wrestling ring and getting booed by a lot of people. Having other interests is so important. If cricket is your be all and end all, this industry can just squeeze you out and chuck you out. So it's very important to have that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for your questions there, Nate, and great answers there from Bharat. Bharat, we've got the last listeners' questions here,
Cool.
and this one's a 4-part question one, and they're quite large ones. So bear with us, everyone, as I try and read these. But it's from Jihan, our good friend Jihan, who's a regular listener of the podcast, and we've had many discussions on cricket. He's one of those people, Bharat, that doesn't like too much change in cricket and thinks T20 cricket should be used for light entertainment, as it was intended for in the early days. But anyway, that's another issue. So his first question, Bharat, is hi, Bharat. Good to see you on the podcast. My first question is about allegiances. I was born and raised in Kent, England, down the road from the Kent Cricket Ground in Canterbury. I am of Sri Lankan Tamil heritage, and my father has always been a huge Australian supporter. When I first got into cricket aged 8 during the 96 World Cup, I loved the West Indies, but also loved Australia and pretty quickly became an Australia superfan as West Indies continued their dramatic decline. I moved to Australia aged 26 and continued to be that Australia superfan. I live in Western Australia now, but my initial 6 years were in Melbourne, and visiting the MCG in that time gave me goosebumps every time I went. So my question is, are you now a full Australian, an Australian cricket fan, or do you still support India as well? So that's the first question from Jihan, Bharat.
It's easy for me. I've never supported India. Not a single day of my life have I supported India for whatever reason. I don't know. It goes back to my upbringing and the way I was. But I just fell in love with the West Indies very early on, from my first memory in life, like I said. So I've never had to walk away from my love for Indian cricket and become an Australian fan or any of those things. So that helped. But in terms of allegiances, look, I think the best example I can give you, Gihan, is when I was there in Ahmedabad for the 50 over World Cup final. It was a surreal experience to see so many Indian people together and there being silence. After a point when Travis Head got into his own, there you could hear the batters calling between each other. You could hear Rohit Sharma setting the field, which was bizarre in the midst of the Narendra Modi Stadium with like nearly 100,000 Indian fans there. The fact that it grown so silent, but at the end of it, I wasn't happy that Australia won. I wasn't unhappy that India lost, or happy that India lost. So none of that. I was happy that some of, like some people I consider my mates, whether it's Pat Cummins or Travis Head or Manas, had one of their best days of their life. So for me, that mattered more to me than Australia winning or India losing or any of those things. And even with the West Indies over time, like when Shamar Joseph did what he did, for a brief second, the only time I've shown any kind of excitement in the press box is when Josh Hazelwood was clean bowled by Shamar Joseph, because suddenly the little boy in me woke up, like the West Indies fan who grew up,
Well, you
getting
helped
beaten
him
up.
get some gear before the Adelaide Test, didn't you? You took him down to.
I did. I bought him an arm guard, arm guard and stuff for his kids. And I tried telling everyone who we met along the way that he's going to be the next big thing of world cricket. Neither of us knew that was going to be a thing, but it became a thing. It was bizarre. In fact, I was at the Cricket Warehouse shop recently, and they kind of recalled that moment when I brought Shama to their shop. So it's funny, just like few weeks ago.
Now you know
But
who he is.
now, yeah, I think they knew who he was. And I did mention the shop a few times, so they got a little embarrassed by it as well. But yeah, so and again, like when you've been a journalist for as long as I have, in most cases, I won't say with all of us, you do kind of lose that whole over. You stop being a fan in that capacity, where you live and die by the team you support winning or losing. Like I've been part of so many West Indian losses since I became a journalist, so it doesn't matter that much to you. But there will be moments when it's like really something happens deep inside. Like I said, when India won at the Gabba, it wasn't me being an Indian at all. It was just such a great triumph for sport. And I think that, like Shamar Joseph winning that test again at the Gabba. So I think those things matter more than, or like even Australia beating India in that World Cup final was such a triumph for sport. So I think those things matter more than, I've never had allegiances, so it's been easier for me. Excuse me. Oh, I thought I had a sneeze coming. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I hope you've answered that well, Bharat, and Jihan will be happy with that answer. The second question out of the four is, was the Indian Champions Trophy victory to some degree a hollow victory? And then Jihan goes on to say the formula of trying opposition teams down with spinners on the slows, saying dry wicket used, and then chasing with Rowett, chancing his arm to get ahead of the rate seems all too familiar. That too with Australia's bowlers missing the advantages of not having to travel, unlike every other team, makes me feel everything was set up in their favour this tournament. Your thoughts? Please not be controversial.
No, look, I don't think the Indian fans or the Indian team will consider it a hollow victory, but I can completely see how it can be surmised in that fashion if you are looking at it from the outside. My only argument with it is once that tournament was designed to be scheduled to be played in Pakistan, and I was there in Pakistan when it became official in 2022, there was India can't. I mean, I don't want to get into the reasons for why India won't go to Pakistan or the Indian team won't go to Pakistan, but they're beyond political and beyond everything else. So the only options that you had were taking the tournament completely out of Pakistan, thereby taking everything from Pakistan, not even the being hosts to start with. The second thing was taking India out of the equation, which was never going to happen because the broadcasters would have backed out because what the Indian team represents. And thirdly, the third option was this hybrid model where Pakistan still get to be co-hosts. They still get something out of this tournament and still have the open opportunity of hosting the final if it is held, if India don't make it. And while India, don't play in Pakistan. I think it was more about India not playing in Pakistan rather than India having all the best advantages in the world and playing in the same venue. That was more an outcome of this tournament being in Pakistan and the Indian team not being able to go to Pakistan. So I guess I was thinking about it the other day. The only way you could have made it fair is what we could have told India, because other teams are traveling, you just have to go up and down. Like you play one match in Abu Dhabi, one in Dubai, and one in Sharjah, just so that you also, I don't know, maybe that could have been fair in some ways, Jack. But apart from that, I can't see any other like any other solution to this issue. It's just the way the hierarchy works in world cricket, the issues between India and Pakistan, which go well beyond just me just explaining them in one podcast. And the outcome that you had, and the fact also that India have just been so dominant in white ball cricket. The one match that they have lost in recent times is that World Cup final to Travis Head in Australia. So they were always going to win. Would it have been felt sweeter for the non-Indian audience if they had won it in Pakistan? Probably, but that was never going to happen. You're talking about geopolitical issues that go well beyond our pay grade. So, yeah, unfortunately, Gihan, I completely respect your view on it. Maybe comes across as a hollow victory, but not for India and their fans.
Yes, and it didn't matter where they were going to play anyway. They could have played in Australia and they still would have won the tournament anyway, so it didn't really matter. So that's the answer to the second question there. The third question, so we're getting through this, Bharat, so bear with us again. What are your thoughts on the future of ODI cricket, Jihan asks. He says, Moeen Ali made some recent comments about how using 2 balls and extra fielding restrictions in the middle overs has ruined the game by heavily favouring the batsman and making it a prolonged, glorified T20 match. My own thoughts are that international cricket should be primarily about tests and ODIs. Ian Chappell said a long, long time ago, around 2007, that he didn't think T20 had a place in international cricket. And to me, I agree with that and think they should only be there for light entertainment. In terms of international competition, that shifts in balance so that we don't just have a random sporadic ODI tournaments every few years where no one really ever played the format, and having T20 World Cups every 1 to 2 years, which continually change hands to the point where it loses any meaning? Or do you think this is how it should be going forward? So your thoughts on that, Bharat?
Some deep questions there, but I think it goes back to what I said earlier, and you mentioned it as well. Unfortunately, Gihan, it's just changed so much. I mean, we just have to accept change. T20 cricket, I know, Michael Holding famously said he will never, ever associate himself with T20 cricket, and he stood his ground. And Ian Chappell, another one who's spoken about it in the past. But look, so many people, not just cricketers, so many people around cricket make so much money, and so many livelihoods depend on T20 cricket these days. So it would be selfish of us, like both me and you, Gihan and Jack, to think otherwise, like of treating it as being this hindrance or this annoying aspect of our sport. It's an integral aspect of our sport, and the amount of money that it brings in many cases. Look at South Africa as a great example, right? Like the T20, without that T20 league, their cricket was drowning. So you're either saying we are okay with that, or we're saying we just have to acknowledge the fact that the way cricket economy works these days, these T20 leagues and T20 cricket are play a huge role in keeping countries like those afloat. It's easy for us sitting in Australia, India, and England to not think about it on those lines, but it's just the reality, and we just have to accept it. One-day cricket, look, I love one-day cricket as well, and we get. I think the Champions Trophy was a fun tournament to watch. Honestly, overall, like there were the high, like the big scoring games in Lahore and Pakistan. But the tricky ones in Dubai, the turning pitches, and where the 2 new balls were negated by the fact that the pitch was dry and there was spin and there was some reverse swing as well later on. So I think, I'm sure they'll muck around with the rules, try to bring back only the 1 ball, get rid of the second new ball, and all those things. But the fact that Steve Smith, modern day great, finished his one-day career having played just 170 games kind of tells you how few ODIs we play. You compare it to the previous generation, and the number of ODIs they played before T20 cricket became a thing will tell you everything. Obviously, India play a lot more than other countries do. With
it didn't like Tendulkar play like 400, yeah,
exactly, yeah,
400 games, yeah.
But even like the likes of Glenn McGrath and Steve Waugh, and those guys played so many more one-dayers than 170. Steve Smith was 16th on the list when he retired, so kind of tells you everything. Considering he's been part of.
And Virat Kohli just played his 300th game in this championship.
300, like, yeah. So Virat Kohli, if he had played in the 90s, would have easily crossed 400 by now. That's just the reality. So one-day cricket is going in its own way, and I think there have been other advantages that T20 cricket has brought in as well. So much more variety to how batters approach. I still so now we've reached a point where test match batting can be one way or the other, or in multiple ways. There's the Travis Head way, there's the Cheteshwar Pujara way, there's the Sam Constis way that's coming along, there's the English way. So I think variety is always good in life.
Yes, indeed it is. And the final question that Jihan asks you, Bharat, and we finally got there in the end. He says, my final question concerns the proposed two-tier test system. I'm interested in your perspective on 2 points. Will this system generally enhance the confidence and quality of second-tier teams, allowing them to compete with the top 4 consistently? For example, I followed the scores of the recent Zimbabwe-Afghanistan series, which seemed to be generally competitive. But can that lead to a step up to challenging tier 1 teams home and away? And specifically, do you see this as a potential catalyst for West Indies Test cricket to at least go back to what it was at the turn of the century? I ask this as someone who holds fond memories of West Indies Test cricket from the late 90s and early 2000s, particularly at home with the crowds and the party atmosphere, and hopes to see them return to that level of competition. So your thoughts on that, Bharat, to finish off the final question from Jihan there.
Look, I think it's good that Australia are playing 3 tests in West Indies and not 2, which in itself is a great sign. I'm a big fan of that. And it also gives me a chance to go back to Jamaica. I haven't been there in a while. But I think the 2-tier system, I'm very intrigued in seeing how it plays out. I don't think, like I said earlier, it won't be as black and white as the top 3 teams will never play against the rest of the world. I can't see that happening. I think, and it boils down to India. The Indian cricket needs the Indian team playing throughout the year, except during the IPL. So they'll need places to visit they can't just keep playing against England and Australia. So I think what will happen is the frequency of India, England, Australia will increase. Like they've said, so you won't have to wait 4 years for India to come to Australia. They'll come once every 3 years. The same with the Ashes, the same with... So there'll be so basically at any given point of time, there'll be some in that configuration. Either India will be playing against England, or England will be playing against Australia, or India will be playing against Australia. So that will be happening a lot more. I don't think that automatically means nobody will play against the rest and they'll just have to play amongst themselves. I just don't see that. Don't forget, India has never won a test series in South Africa, and they won't rest till that happens. That box they have to take. So they'll keep going there, trying their best to do that. And maybe, Gihan is onto something. Maybe it will improve the quality of test cricket for some of those other teams, and West Indies could start competing against. They've had some good wins of late, haven't they? They had that win in Pakistan recently, the one in against Australia we speak about last 2 summers ago, but last year 2 years ago now, at the Gabba. And so, it was last year. There you go. Time just flies. Cricket time. It was last January. It's correct. So anyway, so it might make them more competitive, and I think till the time, again, I keep going back to the players will decide the future of cricket. We're still seeing South Africa churn out highly talented cricketers, New Zealand churning out highly talented cricketers. Sri Lanka, I was very disappointed with the way they played against Australia, but they have some great talents as well right now, whether it's coming to Mendes with the bat or the bowlers that they keep producing. And England, obviously they won that test match in England last year. So I think they will continue to be competitive till the players still keep coming through. And I keep saying this over and over again. I don't think we have to worry about test cricket. It won't look the same way it did back in our day when we were growing up, but it'll still survive and it'll still be important, and we'll still have enough to, love about test cricket for a long time to come.
Yeah, hopefully. And thank you, Jihan, for your questions here. And thank you to everyone who sent in their questions to Bharat. He answered them professionally, as he always does, to the best of his ability, as you would expect from a very award-winning journalist like himself. Well, Bharat. Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed hearing Bharat and I discuss some of your listeners' questions.